Listen, you've got your bug-out bag ready. 3 months of freeze-dried food in the basement. You know what to do when the power goes out. But here's the collapse nobody's actually preparing for. It's Tuesday morning. The internet died sometime during the night, and it's never coming back. Not in an hour, not next week, not ever. And you're standing in your kitchen holding a smartphone that's now just an expensive rectangular rock, realizing that every single system you use to operate your life no longer exists. You need to pick up your kid from a friend's house across town, but you don't remember the address, and you definitely don't know how to get there without the blue line. You want to check your bank balance, but that's just a number in a database somewhere. You're hungry, there's chicken in the fridge, and you genuinely cannot remember how to cook it without typing "how long to bake chicken breast" into a search bar that will never load again. This isn't some EMP fantasy. This is the quiet apocalypse, the one where civilization is still technically standing, but you personally are helpless because you've been outsourcing your brain to a network for 15 years, and that network just disappeared. So let's talk about what actually happens. Day 1, maybe day 2, it's just annoying, inconvenient. You assume it's temporary. Day 5, you're starting to panic because nothing works and nobody knows why. Day 9, your kid needs medicine. The pharmacy is 11 miles away. You think you remember the way, and then you're standing at an intersection that looks exactly like every other intersection, and the truth hits you like cold water. Your brain has been lying to you for 15 years. You have no internal map. You've been following blue lines on a screen, and now there are no blue lines, and you are genuinely lost in your own city, with a sick child, and no way to call for help. Here's the truth about navigation. It's not about carrying a map. It's about building a functional spatial model of your environment inside your skull, the same way every human did for 200,000 years before GPS. You start relearning this right now, today, while the internet still works, by doing something that feels insultingly simple. Every time you go somewhere, you pay attention, not to the blue line, to reality. That water tower is visible from the highway. That gas station is on the northwest corner. The sun sets behind that ridge, which means west is that direction. You build landmarks, you notice angles, you create the map in your head layer by layer until you can close your eyes and walk through your entire town mentally. This isn't nostalgia. This is the difference between reaching your destination and wandering in circles until you give up or get hurt. Then you learn the sky, because the sky doesn't need satellites. The sun rises east, sets west, and at solar noon, it's due south if you're in the northern hemisphere. At night, you find north using Polaris, the North Star, almost exactly above the North Pole. You locate it by finding the Big Dipper, tracing the line through the 2 stars at the edge of the cup, extending it about 5 times the distance. There, north, fixed, reliable. Your ancestors use this every night, while you've been using 17 satellites to find a coffee shop. But navigation is just the first collapse. The second is communication, and this is where it gets strange. You can't call, you can't text, you can't confirm plans or send a thumbs up to let someone know you're alive. And here's the mistake. People think communication was the phone. It wasn't. Communication is the protocol, the place, the time, the system. For millennia, humans coordinated without phones because the system was predictable, physical, and required nothing but memory and discipline. You need rally points, right now. Actual physical locations every person in your household knows by heart. If we get separated, we meet here. If it happens during the day, this spot, this time. You create schedules. Every evening at sunset, someone is at the front of the property. If you're coming, you arrive then. And if you don't show for 3 consecutive days, we assume you're not coming. This isn't cruelty, it's clarity. In a world without phones, you cannot spend weeks waiting and wondering. You need rules that everyone understands, because ambiguity destroys coordination. And coordination is the only thing keeping small groups functional when infrastructure fails. Then there's knowledge, and this should genuinely scare you. You don't know anything anymore. You know how to search, which is not the same as knowing. You don't remember phone numbers. You've never memorized a recipe. You can't do percentages without a calculator app. Every document you own lives in the cloud, which is just someone else's computer, and that computer is now either offline or belongs to a corporation that doesn't care if you ever see your files again. Here's what you do while you still can. You create a physical archive. You download and print the knowledge that keeps you alive. Water purification, edible versus poisonous plants for your region with photos. Wound care, infection treatment, how to suture, how to deliver a baby, how to set a fracture. Food preservation without refrigeration, how to make soap from wood ash and fat. You print detailed maps of your area and every route to anyone you care about. You write down every password, account number, address, phone number. You store it in waterproof containers, organized and indexed, because when the internet is gone, the only information that exists is information you can physically touch. And here's the part nobody wants to hear. You need to start memorizing some of it, actually putting critical knowledge back into your brain. Because if that binder burns or gets stolen, you need to function from the hard drive in your skull. Imagine your archive is gone and your child has a fever. Can you remember the exact dosage of willow bark tea, or are you guessing? Can you recall the difference between the hemlock leaf and the wild carrot, or are you about to poison your family? You build a memory palace. You assign each room of your house to a category. Kitchen is food preservation. Bedroom is medicine. Garage is repair. You walk through it mentally, placing pieces of information on shelves until you can retrieve them without paper. This sounds ancient because it is. It's also the only retrieval system that works when everything else is offline. Money collapses next. Your wealth is a number in a ledger maintained by institutions you've never seen. Your paycheck is a direct deposit. You buy things by waving plastic at a machine. All of it depends on electricity, networks, and collective agreement. When the internet dies, that agreement becomes fiction. Your bank account means nothing if nobody can verify it. Your investment portfolio is a fairy tale about numbers that used to exist somewhere. What matters is what's in your hand. Cash, briefly, but very quickly tangible goods with inherent use. Antibiotics, alcohol, salt, ammunition, seeds, lighters, hand tools. These become currency because they solve immediate problems. You can't eat gold, but you can plant seeds. You can't drink silver, but you can sterilize a wound with alcohol. Value stops being abstract and becomes brutally simple. What does the person in front of me need right now that I can provide? Which brings us to the skills, and this is where most people fail. You've been learning just in time for years. Search it, follow the steps, forget it, because you can always search again. That model dies with the network. If you don't know how to do something before the collapse, you're not learning it after unless you find someone willing to teach you. And in a crisis, nobody has time for free lessons. Start with fire. Learn to make it 3 different ways without matches. Friction, flint and steel, magnifying glass and sunlight. Practice until you can do it in the rain, in wind, with damp wood. Because fire is warmth, water purification, cooking, and the psychological anchor that says you're still in control. Here's your test. The 1 match, 3 ways challenge. You get 1 match. Start a fire. Now keep it alive for 3 days and 3 nights without letting it go out, because matches are finite and friction fire in a rainstorm will break your spirit. Can you do it? Can you build a coal bed that burns slow enough to last through the night and hot enough to revive in the morning? Most people can't. I watched someone fail this on day 2 because they didn't understand that wet wood placed near the fire now becomes dry fuel in 3 hours. They let it die at 2 a.m. and spent the next morning in near hypothermia trying to start over with numb hands. Don't be that person. Water is next, and most people will die from this, not because water is scarce, but because they never learned the 30-second test that tells you if it's safe. Boiling works if you can maintain fire. 1 liter rolling boil, 1 full minute, 3 minutes above 6,000 feet elevation. Chemical purification. 8 drops of unscented bleach per gallon, wait 30 minutes, improvised filtration, layered sand, charcoal, gravel. But here's what kills people. They don't know how to read the source. Fast-moving stream over rocks, probably safe to filter. Stagnant pond, algae bloom, cattle upstream, you will get violently ill. Clear water doesn't mean clean. Sparkling doesn't mean safe. You learn to observe, to trace the source, to understand what contaminates and what doesn't. How do you keep the food you purified water for from rotting in 6 weeks? Food preservation is the long game. Salting, smoking, fermentation, dehydration. These are 1900s techniques we've completely forgotten. You can keep meat edible for months without a freezer if you know how to pack it in salt and hang it in airflow. You can ferment vegetables into something that won't kill you 6 months later. You can dry fruit into calorie-dense stores that last years. But you have to practice now, while failure just means wasted groceries, not starvation. Then there's foraging, and this is where one visual test saves your life. You're looking at a plant, leaves in clusters of 3, shiny, reddish stems. That's poison ivy, or poison oak, depending on where you are. And touching it makes you miserable, but won't kill you. But here's the killer. White berries, umbrella-shaped flower clusters, purple spotted stems. That's water hemlock. That's death in 4 hours, no antidote. And it looks almost identical to wild carrot and wild parsnip. The test. Crush a tiny piece. Carrot smells like carrot. Hemlock smells rank, like death, like rotting earth. Learn the difference now. Memorize what grows in your region that can feed you. Dandelion, whose roots you can roast into a bitter coffee substitute when real coffee is gone. Chickweed, purslane, plantain, which stops bleeding when you crush the leaves and pack them into a wound. Learn what will stop your heart. There's no room for trial and error when you're actually hungry. You also need analog algorithms. These are paper systems that replace the apps you've been using to run your life. Inventory logs, what you have, how much, where it's stored, checked weekly. Crop rotation charts, what was planted where, when to rotate, what depletes soil and what replenishes it. Your family eats in February because you tracked plantings in April and knew exactly when the root vegetables would be ready. Symptom trackers, who got sick, when, what worked, what didn't, so patterns emerge. These sound boring until you realize that without them, you're just guessing. And in survival, guessing kills you slowly through 1,000 inefficiencies. Timekeeping becomes strange. You've been living by synchronized clocks, by calendar alerts, by the exact same second as everyone else. That synchronization depends on networks. When it's gone, your clock and mine drift apart. After a month, we might be 10 minutes off. After 6 months, maybe an hour. This erodes coordination. We agreed to meet at noon, but who's noon? You go back to natural time. You learn to read sun shadows. At solar noon, shadows point true north and are shortest. You can estimate time by shadow length if you know the season. Morning work starts at first light. Midday rest when shadows disappear. Evening tasks when shadows stretch long. It's less precise, but it's also less tyrannical. You're not enslaved to the minute. You move with the planet's rhythm the way humans did before we tried to turn ourselves into machines. But here's the skill nobody's talking about, because it's not tactical or practical or something you can buy. You have to learn to be bored. Actually, genuinely sit in silence bored. The internet isn't just information, it's a dopamine IV drip. It's the thing you reach for every time your brain isn't occupied, every pause, every moment of waiting. You've been in constant low-grade stimulation for so long that an empty hour feels like drowning. I caught myself last month reaching for my phone while sitting on the toilet. Not for anything important, not to check a message, just to feel that hit, that tiny buzz of novelty. That moment broke something in me because I realized if I'm this dependent right now, what am I going to be like on day 3 with no internet? What does month 6 look like? The withdrawal is real, physical. You feel it in your chest, this low-grade panic that you're missing something critical happening somewhere. Your hand reaches for a phone that doesn't work. You wake up checking for notifications that will never come. The urge doesn't fade just because the network is dead. Your brain has been rewired. The neural pathways are carved deep. And then somewhere around day 42, something shifts. You're sitting outside at dusk because there's nothing else to do. And you realize you've been staring at the sky for an hour. Not scrolling, not consuming, just thinking. Your own thoughts, memories you haven't accessed in years because they weren't algorithmically surfaced. Ideas forming slowly without interruption. It's terrifying at first, this silence in your own head, like hearing your voice echo in an empty room. But then it's something else. Something like freedom. Your brain learning to entertain itself again. The panic turns into presence, and you understand, maybe for the first time in 15 years, what it feels like to just exist without performance or stimulation.